I never imagined a quick trip to the grocery store could spiral into a full-blown drama, complete with handcuffs and a neighborhood showdown. But that's exactly what happened one ordinary Tuesday evening. Picture this. I'm trudging through the parking lot of my condo complex, Pinewood Grove, arms weighed down with a flimsy paper bag stuffed with eggs, bread, and a questionable amount of instant ramen. The sun's dipping low, casting long shadows across the asphalt, and all I want is to collapse on my couch with a cold soda. But life, as it turns out, had other plans courtesy of Linda Harper, our infamous HOA president. I was halfway to my unit when a piercing shriek cut through the air. "Hey, Michael, stop right there." I froze, grocery bag crinkling against my chest, as Linda stormed toward me like a hurricane in designer jeans. Her face was beet red, her eyes blazing with righteous fury, and she was jabbing a manicured finger in my direction like I'd just keyed her car. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded, her voice shrill enough to rattle the windows. Clipped to her pristine blouse was that absurd, bedazzled name tag she wore everywhere. Linda Harper, HOA president, sparkling like it was her crown. I blinked, utterly baffled. Linda, what are you talking about?" I asked, shifting the bag to keep the eggs from smashing. She planted herself in front of me, hands on hips, and gestured wildly toward a gleaming silver SUV parked a good 15 feet away. "My car. My brand new Lexus. You dented it when you walked by just now. I saw you from my window." Her voice dripped with accusation, and she threw in a sneer for good measure. "You renters think you can just trash other people's property? That dent's gonna cost thousands." My stomach did a little flip, not because I was guilty, but because the sheer absurdity of it all almost made me laugh. I hadn't gone anywhere near her precious Lexus or any car, for that matter. I've been walking straight down the middle of the lot, minding my own business. But the look on Linda's face told me she wasn't joking. This was serious, deadly serious, in that unhinged, HOA overlord kind of way. Now, if you've never lived in Pinewood Grove, let me paint you a picture of Linda Harper. She's the kind of person who'd write you up for a mailbox that's a shade too blue or measure your lawn with a ruler to ensure it's exactly 2 inches tall. She once tried to fine old Mrs. Callahan for hanging unapproved wind chimes that dared to tinkle too loudly. In the 3 years I've been renting here, Linda had built a reputation as the queen of petty tyranny. But accusing me of denting her car with a grocery bag? This was a new low, even for her. "Linda," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the crowd starting to form, neighbors peeking out from patios, a few bold ones filming with their phones. "I didn't touch your car. I walked nowhere near it. I just came from a store and was heading to my unit." I gestured to the wide gap between my path and her SUV, hoping logic might break through her rage. No such luck. Her eyes narrowed, and she jabbed her finger at a small dent on her passenger door, complete with a scratch of white paint. "Don't lie to me," she snapped. "I saw you brush right up against it with that bag of yours. That's due lot $800 minimum, and you're paying for it today? Or I'm calling the cops." I glanced around, feeling the weight of a dozen pairs of eyes. Mrs. Alvarez from next door gave me a sympathetic notch bin on Linda's bad side last Christmas for some unauthorized string lights. Across the lot, Mr. Chun, a quiet guy from Unit 412, watched from his balcony, giving me a subtle thumbs up that made me feel slightly less like I was losing my mind. "Linda, there's been a misunderstanding," I said, pointing to the distance between me and her car. I wasn't even close. Maybe someone else hit it earlier. Her face twisted with what I can only describe as theatrical outrage. "Are you calling me a liar?" she hissed, clutching her phone like a weapon. "I'm the president of this HOA. I know what I saw." Before I could respond, she was dialing 911, her voice rising to a fever pitch as she reported an assault on my property to the dispatcher, making it sound like I'd taken a sledgehammer to her Lexus instead of, carrying a bag of ramen 10 feet away. I couldn't believe it. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Go ahead," I said louder than I felt. "I've got nothing to hide because I didn't do anything." Linda's eyes widened, clearly not used to pushback. Most people just paid her fines or apologized to avoid her wrath, which was probably why she'd been HOA president for 4 straight terms despite being loathed by everyone. As we waited for the police, she paced by her car, snapping photos of the dent and glaring at me like I was a master criminal. I texted my boss, "Might be late tomorrow." Apparently, I'm in a criminal investigation over a car dent. 15 minutes later, a police cruiser rolled into the lot. 2 officers stepped out, looking mildly confused as they took in the scene. A furious woman in a bedazzled name tag, a guy clutching groceries, and a gaggle of neighbors filming like it was the season finale of a reality show. "That's him," Linda cried, rushing the officers. "He damaged my car and refuses to take responsibility." She launched into her story at breakneck speed, claiming she'd seen me deliberately swing my grocery bag in her door. She demanded charges for vandalism and an insurance claim, her voice practically VY bratting with indignation. When it was my turn, I explained calmly. I'd walked through the center of the lot, nowhere near her car, and there were witnesses to back me up. Before the officers could respond, Mr. Chin stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm. "Officers, I was on my balcony working when this happened. Michael didn't come within 10 feet of any car. I've got security cameras that might have caught it." Linda's face flickered with panic, but she recovered fast. "His cameras are too far to see clearly," she scoffed. "I know what I saw." The taller officer nodded at Mr. Chun. "We'd like to see that footage, sir." But before Mr. Chun could lead them to his unit, Ethan from 307, a tech geek with a souped-up car, jumped in. "Officers, my dash cam's parked right across from Linda's Lexus. It runs for 30 minutes after I park, and I just checked the footage. Want to see it?" Linda's face drained of color as Ethan pulled out his phone and played the VY Deo. There I was, strolling through the lot, a solid 15 feet from her SUV, not even glancing at it. The crowd murmured, and I felt a wave of relief. But Ethan wasn't done. "There's more," he said, swiping to another clip from 2 hours earlier. The footage showed Linda pulling into her spot too fast, her passenger door scraping a concrete parking barrier as she climbed out. The impact was small but clear, and it matched the dent she'd pinned on me. The officers watched, their faces unreadable, then turned to Linda, who looked like she'd been slapped. "Ms. Harper," the shorter officer said, "filing a false police report is a serious offense. So is wasting emergency resources on a non-emergency call." Linda stammered, her confidence crumbling. "Too was certain I saw. Maybe I got the person wrong, but there is damage." The officer wasn't buying it. "Damage you caused yourself, according to this VY Deo." What happened next was pure chaos. Linda tried to delete the 911 call from her phone, muttering about neighborhood crime concerns. When the officers pointed out that 911 calls are logged, she made a break for her unit, claiming she had to check something. "Ma'am, stay here," the taller officer said, his voice like steel. "This is outrageous." Linda shrieked. "I'm the HOA president. I've lived here 12 years. I don't deserve to be treated like a criminal." But the officers were done. "Hands behind your back," they said, and just like that, Linda Harper was arrested for filing a false report, misusing emergency SARE VYCES, and trying to obstruct justice. The neighbors watched, jaws dropped, as she was led to the cruiser, still yelling about her community SARE VYC hours. I stood there, groceries still in hand, feeling like I'd stumbled into a MOVYE. A week later, I learned Linda got slapped with a DULA 2000 fine and 40 hours of community SARE VYC. The judge had zero sympathy after hearing her 911 call, where she'd claimed I threatened her, completely debunked by Ethan's footage. The HOA board didn't waste time either. They held an emergency meeting, booted Linda as president, and sent me a letter with a DULA 100 grocery gift card and an apology for the unfortunate incident. When I saw Linda the next weekend, loading boxes into her dented Lexus, she avoided my gaze, her face flushed with shame. For once, she had nothing to say. But here's where it gets juicy, and I want to hear from you. Was Linda just mistaken, or did she deliberately try to frame me to flex her HOA power? Should I have pushed for harsher consequences, like suing for defamation? And what would you have done if you were messed your ground or paid her to avoid the drama? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Smash that like button if you love a good karma story, and subscribe for more wild tales from the trenches of everyday life. Let's get this debate rolling.